Arun was restless. He had always been the kind of person who wanted to do everything, read more, learn faster, achieve bigger goals. But no matter how hard he tried, he could never focus for long. His thoughts jumped from one thing to another: unfinished books, scattered ideas, half-done projects. He would sit down to study, and 5 minutes later, find himself scrolling through his phone or thinking about something completely unrelated. He felt exhausted, tired of starting and never finishing, tired of living inside a mind that never seemed to stay still. One day, frustrated beyond words, Arun traveled to a remote monastery in the mountains. He had heard stories of a monk there, a man known not for what he said, but for how silent his mind had become. The journey was long, cold, quiet. When he arrived, he found the monk sitting on a stone bench, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. No phone, no books, no distractions, just stillness. Arun waited for the monk to speak, but he didn't. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, the monk opened his eyes and said just one thing: "Sit." And so Arun did, uncomfortably, awkwardly, without knowing what would come next. The first day passed in silence. The monk gave Arun no instructions, no lessons, no teachings, just the same word every morning: sit. So Arun sat, legs crossed, back stiff, thoughts loud. His mind ran wild. What am I doing here? This is a waste of time. I should be working on my goals. But the monk said nothing. He simply sat beside him, still, calm, undisturbed. By the third day, Arun could barely take it anymore. He stood up suddenly and said, "Why aren't you teaching me anything? I came here to learn how to control my mind." The monk opened his eyes and replied, "You don't control the wind by chasing it. You control it by learning how to stand still." Arun frowned. "But my mind never stops moving." The monk nodded. "Then stop trying to move with it." That evening, Arun sat again. This time, he didn't try to stop his thoughts. He didn't try to fight them. He just watched. Thoughts came. Thoughts went, like clouds across the sky. And for a moment, just a moment, he felt still. By the 5th day, something began to change. Arun still had thoughts, lots of them. But now, instead of reacting to everyone, he simply noticed them. He began to understand. The mind wasn't an enemy to defeat. It was a guest to observe. The monk had still said very little. But one morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, he handed Arun a small bowl of water and said, "Walk to the end of the path. Don't spill a drop." Arun nodded and began walking, slowly, carefully, eyes on the bowl. When he returned, the monk smiled. "Did you think of anything else while walking?" Arun shook his head. "No, I was focused on not spilling." The monk replied, "That is what attention feels like. Not forced, not scattered, just present." Arun sat down, holding the bowl in his lap, and realized something. Focus wasn't about controlling everything around him. It was about choosing where to place his mind. fully, gently, without panic. That evening, for the first time in his life, he meditated not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The days passed, but they no longer felt slow. Without his phone, without distractions, Aaron began noticing things he never had before. The way the breeze moved through the trees, the way his breath felt in the early morning, the way his mind, once chaotic, now had moments of silence, real silence. Each morning, the monk still said the same word, sit. And each day, Aaron sat more comfortably, not just with his body, but with himself. He no longer fought his thoughts. He welcomed them, then let them go. He no longer needed constant motion. Stillness had become familiar. One afternoon, the monk placed a single pebble in Aaron's hand. "This is your mind," he said. "Now drop it in the water." Aaron walked to the pond and did as told. He watched the ripples spread, then disappear. The monk stood beside him and said, "Every thought creates ripples, but if you don't hold on to it, the surface becomes clear again." That night, Aaron didn't think about how long he'd stay at the monastery. For the first time, he wasn't planning the next move. He was simply here, and that felt like progress. One morning, as Aaron prepared to sit, the monk handed him a sheet of paper. "Write down everything your mind tells you," he said. "Just listen. Don't judge." Aaron hesitated, then began. At first, the words came fast. "I'm not good enough. I should be somewhere else. I'm wasting time. I'll never get ahead." He kept writing, line after line, thought after thought, until the page was full. The monk read it silently, then asked, "Whose voice is this?" Aaron looked down. "I don't know." The monk replied, "Then why do you believe it?" That single question struck deeper than any advice he had ever heard. Aaron had spent his life reacting to thoughts that didn't even belong to him, fears he had inherited, expectations he had absorbed, none of them truly his. That afternoon, he sat again, this time not to chase clarity, but to let go of noise. And the silence that came wasn't empty. It was alive, like a space he had finally cleaned out, a home he could finally live in. He realized the mind could be wild, but it didn't have to be in control. It could be trained, not with force, but with patience. On his final day at the monastery, Aaron woke before the sun. He didn't feel rushed. He didn't feel behind. He just felt present. He packed his bag slowly, folded his blanket, and walked to the garden where the monk was trimming a few dry branches from a small tree. They didn't speak right away. Then the monk said, "You came with a restless mind. What are you leaving with?" Aaron thought for a moment. "A quiet one," he answered. The monk smiled. "Not because it is empty, but because you've stopped feeding every thought." Aaron nodded. He no longer needed to chase clarity. He had learned how to return to it. Before leaving, the monk handed him a small, smooth stone. "For your pocket," he said. When the mind gets noisy, touch it. And remember, stillness isn't the absence of thought. It's the choice to not follow everyone. As Aaron walked down the path toward the valley, the wind picked up slightly. He felt it brush across his face, but unlike before, he didn't chase it with his thoughts. He let it pass and kept walking, quietly, steadily, deeply focused.